Hey guys, here we go into a film study on Amir Imam, and I'm using the same format that I did yesterday. We're not going to be doing full rounds, but just clips of offense and defense and other things to kind of try to grade him as a fighter. Now this is going to be a really interesting one too because he hits all of the marks, and it's going to give a lot of great examples of what to and what not to do in the ring. Much less what to do, but much more what not to do. So one of the first things I want to point out is that, let's get back. He's basically a counterpuncher. You know, even though he's an aggressive, quote unquote, aggressive fighter, you know, he looks to wait for you to punch. Like in this instance right here. Right here, where he waits for Granados to get out of position, right? So talking about positioning and the reason why so many high-level fighters, the fights wind up getting stale, you know, at the highest levels, is because they're waiting for their opponent to be out of position, right? When you're committing to another punch, you're changing your position, right, from your natural boxing stance to the position of having your lead hand out through a jab, through the process of throwing a jab, or the process of throwing a right hand, or the process of even blocking a punch, or catching a punch, or slipping a punch. That's all of those things are called out of position because you have a very limited range of motion of things that you can do to defend yourself or things you can do to get away from other punches because you're not in your natural stance. And a lot of times fighters like Amir Imam, they don't know how to set their opponents. They don't know how to set their offense up, but they do know that the most effective time to throw punches at your opponent is when they're out of position. Like Granados right here, after he throws that jab, he's out of position, right? Now he has to find a clever way to get away from that jab or get away from that right hand while he's completely out of position. And fighters like Amir Imam, in spite of the fact that they understand that that's the most important way to set your offense up or to land offense, they don't know how to do that without putting themselves out of position as well, right? Or how to get you out of position without committing to your offense, right? And that's what you call probing, right? Where you go in with a feint and you wait for your opponent to react to the feint, and then they put themselves out of the position with the feint, from the feint, and you're able to land punches while they're out of position. You know, like if they try to count, like if you jab feint or jab probe, right? You throw your jab, and now you can slip the jab to the inside and then throw a left hook, or you can throw a right hand over the jab, or you can slip the jab to the outside and then pivot on them and make a turn and create a positional advantage while they're putting themselves out of position, responding to your probe or your feint because you didn't commit to the punch, you didn't commit to the action. Now, one interesting thing, again, you know, Amir Imam waiting for his opponent to go first. And now, let's see, going back to the beginning. So yeah, as you can see, and this is the interesting thing, like when we get to talking about the first part, right? So number one is how does a fighter control the distance between the two fighters? And it's very important to do that so that your opponents can't set punches up against you, right? You need to be feinting, you need to be probing, and you need to have your hand in their face, or you need to be using the feints, right, to make your opponent second guess whether it's safe to actually throw punches and to cross that threshold of what do you call it? Punching range, right? Like right now they're not in punching range, right? And then as soon as Granados does get into punching range, right, he shoots that jab, and then he eats that right hand over the top of his jab, and now he has to be wary. And counterpunching is the way that Amir Imam looks to control that distance, to make his opponent pay for moving into that space. So that's how he controls it, which is a very, very, very flawed way to do it because it allows your opponents to still set their punches up. Even though in this instance right here, it's going to work out great for him, right? Granados comes in with the counters, right? And he winds up getting dropped right there because he's trying to get in on Granados, or he's trying to get in on Amir Imam, and Amir Imam is using the counters to control that space, and he winds up getting a knockdown. But if you look real quickly right here, Granados has already shown that, has already learned that Amir Imam is looking to counter him, right? So let me put it in slow-mo. I'll probably have to, okay. So immediately he goes here, and look at how he feints the jab, right? And now he knows that Amir Imam is going to look to counter. But unfortunately for him, this time Amir Imam counters with a jab rather than a right hand, and but Granados is still almost able to walk him into that right hand. And that's one of the problems that's one of the problems with controlling the distance with counter punches. Also, because of the fact, like I was saying, he's committing to that style, right? He's committing to it. So he's putting himself out of position to control the space between them. And the counter punching is in hopes of stopping Adrian Granados from opening up and using his own offense, so that Amir Imam can, without being contested, set up his own offense, right? But Amir Imam does a good job of moving out of position, or after he slips that right hand, he does a good job of pivoting this way and then throwing another 1-2 and catching Granados. So in this instance, it works out very well for him, but in this instance, it doesn't. So again, Amir Imam using counter punches to control the distance, as you saw that jab to the body just landed because he's not controlling it. So feints wind up working out really well against him. And then Adrian Granados is able to go to the body, right? And then boom, because of the fact that Amir Imam, he has no head movement. He has a stale guard. His head is always in the same spot. It was really easy for Granados to change the rhythm up, boom, and land a right hand right there. And I'm pretty sure that right hand lands. I'm not going to look at it, but it doesn't matter whether it does or not. The fact is that his head is still there, right? It's still there because he's not looking to control the distance. He's not looking to stop Granados from being able to set up his punches, and it allows Granados to use his probe right here, to get Imam to try and counter it so he can go over the top with his right hand. And that's the important part of it. So Amir Imam not showing a very high level of knowledge about how important it is to control the distance between two fighters, or how to do it. The next thing we're going to start looking at his offense. And as we saw, the knockdown that he got against Granados was because he was counterpunching, and Granados was still trying to figure him out. He was still trying to, figure out what counterpunches, what this, what that, feeling him out, but still being aggressive in that regard. But that's most of the way that he looks to set up his offense. So we're going to look at Amir Imam's actual offense when he's the one leading now, and the things we're going to be looking at are how dangerous is his offense. How much does he set up each punch? How much does he set up each probe? How much does he set up his right hands? How much is he probing? How much is he using other punches? And in this regard, immediately he commits to the jab and winds up getting countered over the top. And, go back. So he shoots the jab, and Granados slips it, and then comes up with a left hook, a right hand, and then follows him. And while Amir Imam, again, he has no head movement, he gets hit with the right hand, and then tries to counter, and then winds up getting hit with the left hook. So far not looking great for his offense. Again, another jab. Amir Imam shoots the jab. Granados is very easily able to slip it because of the fact that he knows that Amir Imam is not feinting. He's not probing. He's not looking to set the shot up. He just explodes out of his guard, and he's always honest with his offense. So whenever he does make a movement, it's going to be a punch. And again, very easily able to slip that jab and come over the top with the right hand. So far, Amir Imam not showing any ability to actually set up his own punches, and putting himself in a lot of danger. Again, shooting the jab, and not looking, and after he throws his shots, right? So that was like a very weird exchange, but as you can see, he just shoots the jab. And look at this, is interesting because he does a little bit of control right here after he shoots the jab, which is good. But he misses his counter. Granados almost lands that right hand over the top. Boom, right? It might even land. It's not important. But again, Amir Imam not setting his shots up very well, still leaving himself very open to the counter punches and eating a shot right there. and then eating that last shot right there, because he doesn't know how to control his opponent or set up his punches. So when he does wind up going out for offense, he puts himself in a very poor position. Let's see what this next frame is. Okay, again, the same thing, not setting up his jab, right? Just shooting it, always being honest with it, and getting countered over the top with the right hand right there. Because he doesn't, in spite of the fact that he knows his best opportunities to punch Granados in the face are when Granados is putting himself out of position, he doesn't know how to make a fighter put themselves out of position before committing to his offense. So he's always very honest with his shots. Again, right there, very easy to time him because he's always honest, walks into a big right hand, and then a left hook right there, and another right hand as well. Now we're going to talk about defense, and I'm not sure who saw the Sergey Lipinets fight last night, but it was a pretty good fight. I didn't think that, I didn't score it, to be honest. I just kind of figured Lipinets was going to win, and I had him winning early, but his opponent was able to find ways to walk him into shots all night long because he had a very predictable defense, and he wasn't pivoting off of the shots. After he would make his opponent miss one time, he wouldn't pivot off or take angles or anything, and he'd be able to just get walked into punches. Now, this right here, Amir Imam slips the shot, and he does the right thing, right? He gets away from it, right? And he ducks down, right? So far, what has he done wrong? Nothing, but he still gets hit with a shot, right? Because he's not controlling his opponent, right? He stays there, he makes his defensive posture or his defensive movement, and then he just gets hit with a shot because he's not controlling Granados, right? When he has him pinned down like that, or when he has him ducked down like this and he's bodied up with him right here, he needs to control that left arm, either with his own left arm or by pushing off with his shoulder and taking an angle and spinning out to his right. Or, even just punching from this position, creating some space, pushing Granados off balance at least so that he can't punch him, right? But he doesn't, and he winds up getting hit with a little shot. And that's not important, right? It doesn't matter. It's not a hard shot, but it just shows you that he doesn't understand how to control fighters. Again, going into this situation, look at his defense. Gets away from the right hand, slips, Wolves, look at how fancy that is. Look at how many of those punches he got away from, right? He did a really good job in that first sequence, but now, boom, he takes a right hand to the body. Now he takes a left hand right there. Now he takes some more shots to the body, a left, a right to the head, some more shots to the head, and this is all because he has very poor defense. Now, I know that might sound counterintuitive, especially with how well he's able to get away from these shots, and looks pretty fancy and, but the fact that he's not controlling Granados. He's, like I was saying at the beginning of the video when we talk about positioning, and when you get down to it, when you get to the highest level, boxing is not about your punches, it's not about your speed, it's not about your power, it's all about positioning. And that's one of the things that makes fighters like Vasily Lomachenko such great fighters, is that they understand that they constantly need to be making you make mistakes, rather than relying on you making mistakes by yourself, which is what Amir Imam so far looks to do. Now, after he throws these shots, boom, where does Amir Imam go? He doesn't go anywhere. So he's just completely out of position, and he has to eat that shot. Now he's trying to tie up, right? He has a very poor clinch, and he eats another shot. Now he's not controlling Granados at all. Granados has his head on his shoulder, and he's the one pushing him off balance or pushing him back. And he's able to just throw punches and tee off at will because of the fact that Amir Imam is not clinching. He's not turning. He's not pivoting. He's not using his forearms to push Granados off balance. He's not using his hands to push Granados back and control him. He has literally no control of Granados, and Granados is able to do exactly what he wants and throw whatever punches he wants with nearly no recourse, aside from a couple punches that Amir Imam is throwing that for some reason aren't landing or aren't effective. Now this is a really interesting one, right? So he pushes him back, controls him with his lead hand, and then walks him into a straight right hand, right? And then he pushes him off to control him, but he still eats a left hook to the body, right? This is very poor control from Amir Imam, right? While he's controlling his opponent and using his lead hand in this regard, he throws that shot, but he stays there. He doesn't use any kind of defensive responsibility. He doesn't take an angle. He doesn't smother him. He just pushes him back, but he doesn't move him, right? He doesn't move himself. He only moves his opponent a little bit. So he's not looking to take an angle or defensive posture. Winds up just eating a body shot. And again, very poor defense. Even though it looks, fancy, right? He's hopping side to side, slips that shot, gets under the next shot, and then starts walking into punches right here because he's not controlling his opponent. Again, even though it looks like for all intents and purposes, he's doing everything right, slipping and rolling, and he's got a good defense, like how most boxing trainers say that kind of stuff, he's not controlling his opponent. And that's much more important because your opponents are not going to be honest with you in the ring. They're not going to say, hey, I'm throwing this jab, and every single time I throw the jab, it's going to be a real jab. You don't have to worry about it being a feint or a probe or, setting up a right hand or whatever. It's always going to be a jab. This is not like, Mortal Kombat, right? Where you press A and it always does a kick, or you press Y and it always does a punch, right? There are feints, there are probes, there are people setting their shots up and trying to walk you into other things. The boxing is just so much more dynamic than that. As you see, he's just sitting on the ropes, and even though some of these motions, right, turning away from the shots, right, he turns away from that left hook. If it would have been to the head, he would have blocked it, but it was to the body, and he didn't. Because of the way that he's relying on these kind of defensive movements, he's eating a lot more shots than he should. Now the video started over. Talking about Amir Imam in all these terms. So it doesn't look like he knows how to set up his punches, right? No feints, no probes. He's always very honest. Even when he's countering and he's slipping and moving, he doesn't look to control you after he punches, right? So in this regard, even though it's not super important because of the fact that Granados is moving away, he comes up straight up in the same spot. He doesn't have any head movement after. But also, look at how stale his guard is. Look at how his head is in one spot. And that's why it's so easy for Granados to land punches against him. As you'll see in this next scene, exactly when he shoots the jab to the body and then goes to the right hand right there. And I'm not sure if that punch lands, but again, it doesn't matter. All these punches are landing because Amir Imam has no head movement. Even though he can slip and roll and dodge and whatever, that's not real head movement. That's just common sense. But anyway, very poor defense. He doesn't look like he knows how to control his opponents at all on the inside, and that's why he eats so many counters, even from like a mediocre fighter like Adrian Granados, who I had an interesting conversation with yesterday with one of my viewers, who thinks that he's underrated. And to be honest, Adrian Granados probably is underrated. One of the things that stops him from really being a commodity is that, like, if you look at somebody like Adrian Broner, they have fantastic posture. They're really strong. They're never slouching or sloppy, or, their punches are always crisp. Whereas Adrian Granados kind of looks like shit, like, look at him hunching over and, like, kind of falling over the place, and he just doesn't look like a contender. His tools just aren't as sharp as someone like Adrian Broner, and that stops people from really taking him seriously. He might land 25 punches in a round, but Broner might land 20 punches, and because Broner looks like a better athlete, and he looks like his punches hit harder or whatever, he's going to get the round, even though he's not as effective, or he may not be as effective. But anyway, back to Amir Imam. Very poor defense. Doesn't look like he knows how to control his opponents, and even though he looks like he makes the right moves, and he does the right slips and rolls, he's still very easy to walk into punches. And we saw how that can affect a fighter if you watch the Sergey Lipinets fight and the study, especially if you watch the film study that I did on him before, how easy I talked about it, how easy it was going to be for his opponents to walk him into shots, just like we saw yesterday. And that's why Adrian Granados had so much success in this fight, which is why he was able to beat him and very surprisingly knock him out, in spite of the fact that he got knocked down in the first round. So even though he understands positioning, he doesn't know how to make you put yourself out of position. He doesn't set his punches up, lead hand, so no points in offense, no points in defense because he doesn't look to control. He doesn't take angles. He doesn't pivot. He doesn't use head movement. He doesn't turn off at angles. He doesn't, there's just so much that he doesn't do defensively that makes it very easy to just walk him into punches with feints and probes yourself. And also, he has a stale guard, and he doesn't know how to really control the distance, which is why stuff like that, you can walk him into punches. So, Amir Imam, even though he has great power, and he's going to be a fun fighter to watch, and I'm definitely going to enjoy watching him fight fighters like Sergey Lipinets and Regis Prograis. I don't think that if he stays with this current trainer, that he's going to be able to advance enough to really become a dominant world champion. And I kind of I'll give him 3 stars, just a very, if he does wind up becoming a world champion, he'll just be your average world champion. Some guy who has a couple fights, maybe has a couple, like Danny Garcia style world champion, where if they made him a star, he could hold on to his belt a little longer, but if they throw him to the wolves, he has to fight a real fighter like Regis Prograis. Or even, to be honest, him and Sergey Lipinets, that would be a fantastic fight. Both of them are limited in similar ways, but I would give the edge to Lipinets. I think he knows a little bit more about setting up his punches and how to get his opponents out of position. He has a little more crafty stuff. But it would be a great fight. It would be one that I would definitely love to watch. Whereas I think that Regis Prograis would probably just destroy Amir Imam. I think he would actually just probably blow him out. Maybe 2 rounds he could get him out of there. Anyway, and I'm not sure how Sergey Lipinets would fight a southpaw, to be honest. I wonder if it would be different because he has that, that right hand over his chest, this kind of style that Amir Imam is looking to employ. But at the moment, I would definitely give the advantage to Regis to beat Lipinets as well, especially with that kind of ass beating that he was kind of taking yesterday. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. And if you guys have any suggestions for 140-pound fighters for the next installment of this kind of video, let me know. Also, let me know if you guys like the new style where I'm not doing full rounds and just clips and stuff. I'd appreciate some feedback. Thanks, guys.